Okay.
Hello. Welcome to part 3 of our special meeting of the Library Board of Trustees on December 1st, where we are interviewing candidates for the position of library director. This is our third candidate is coming up, and I will introduce all of us again for anyone who's just joining now. I'm John Hall. Marguerite.
Hello.
Do you want to wait till Peter comes in to do that?
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
Let him in. All right. Okay. Sorry about that. I should have let him in earlier.
Not a problem.
All right. Hi, Peter.
Good afternoon.
All right. So, Peter, the format we're going to use here is I'm going to turn this over to John for some introductions, and then you'll come back to me, and then I'll have some questions, and we'll proceed from there. All right? So, John.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hi, Peter, and everyone else who's on. I'm John Hall, Chair of the Board of Library Trustees. And next on our list of introductions is Marguerite.
Hi again, Peter. How are you?
Hi, Marguerite. Nice to see you again.
Thanks. Same to you.
And then Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna Montgomery. I'm a trustee.
Nice to meet you, Donna.
And
Thank you,
George,
Peter.
who you've also met.
Hi, Peter. Good to see you again.
Hi, George. Thank you.
And finally, Sarah Begg, who you also know.
Hello again, Peter.
Hi,
Welcome
Sarah.
back.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, back to Bernie to take us through the
Excuse me.
interview.
All right. So again, Peter, you're familiar with sort of the process that we like to use. It's we're going to be making this a dialogue, hopefully, of back and forth. And so I'm going to have some questions, some topics for you, and then we'll get an opportunity to get to know you a little bit more. So
Okay.
obviously, the screening committee was impressed with your interview and your resume. That's all been sent on to the trustees, and they've been excited to have an opportunity to meet you. But we're going to start with tell us about yourself. Why are you interested in the Norwood Library Director position? You're currently a director elsewhere. What is it about Norwood that interests you?
Sure. So to start, thank you guys. Thank you all for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to continue in this process and get to know you guys a little bit better today. So tell you about myself and why I'm interested in this opportunity in Norwood. I can answer this question for the next hour. I'll keep it brief though. I've worked in libraries for about 16, 17 years. I started right out of college, went right from my undergraduate at the University of Massachusetts Lowell, where I got degrees in communications and philosophy. And I mean, at an early age, I was a lover of people, a lover of community, a lover of being around people. One of my great goals in life is to be the funny guy in the room, to get a joke that makes people smile, makes people feel comfortable, and just to spend time with people. I didn't know where it was going to take me, but in college, it took me to study people more through communications studies and through philosophy. I had several jobs on campus, and one of them was to be a resident advisor. And as part of that program, you have to go talk to like a career counselor once or twice a semester. And I spent some time with one. And after a few conversations, she said, "Have you ever thought about being a librarian?" And I said, "That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. No, never have I thought about that." And she goes, "Well, how often do you go to the library?" And I go, 3 or 4 times a week. And her husband was a librarian. And we started to talk about libraries. I worked my way into an internship, and I worked in the internship for about 5 days. And I said, "This is it. This is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life." I finished my degree. I went on to Simmons and got my master's degree there, and I've just worked in libraries ever since. And it's something that I love. It's something that I believe in, and it's the way that I can make a difference in the world. I think it's the way that I can help build community, be part of a community, wear many hats, but one of them as teacher. To teach people how to make themselves smarter, how to empower themselves, and to be the guy that kind of steers the ship of people's experience. So how does that ship steer towards Norwood? So there's nothing wrong with Belmont. I love Belmont. I love working there, and I've built a family out of the people there and had a great experience. But I wasn't really looking for a job, and I still am not. But when an opportunity like Norwood comes along, you don't scoff at it. Why Norwood? The people. That's why Norwood. The opportunity to work in a community like Norwood is one that I've wanted for many years, and it specifically breaks down to the people. I know some members of your staff. I've met Kate Teague a few times and had some dialogue with her. She seems great. I've worked a little more closely with Liz in her efforts in Minuteman, and had some involvement at conferences with her, gone to the same sessions and spent some time together. And Lydia Sampson is an old friend and a colleague, and somebody that I greatly admire, that I've built a relationship with over the years. My first call was to Lydia when I heard about the opportunity, because man, would Lydia Sampson make a great library director. I don't care what she says, she'd be fantastic. And I wanted to see what her interest was. And she spoke specifically about loving to be the number two, loving to be the person behind the scenes and play more of the, Mr. Spock to Captain Kirk kind of thing. Encouraged me to learn more about it. And the more I learned, the more interested I am. I come from a town called Billerica, up in the Merrimack Valley. And I don't know if anybody knows anything about Billerica, but it's very similar to Norwood. It's a working class community. It's a community that people love to be involved in. There's lots of community days. The town even looks similar to me. It's got a strong commercial tax base, a strong school system, and it's upper middle class or middle class more, where people really need a library, where people really benefit from a community that can be built by its departments. To come to Norwood, to me, would feel like coming home. I've worked in lots of different types of communities. And I've never gotten the chance to go home though. I work in a town now in Belmont that's the same size as Norwood, 25,000 to your 30,000. So I know you've assembled a great team of candidates. I think any way you go here, you guys are in great shape. You're gonna have a great director. One thing I noticed was that your candidate pool, they come from communities that are either 3 times bigger than Norwood or 3 times smaller than Norwood. And I grew up in a community that was a similar size, a little bit bigger, and I work in a community right now that's a similar size. I think my learning curve would be a little less. I'm also a part of the Minuteman Library Network already, and I serve on its executive board, which is the team that helps to run the network. So a lot of those network and community size, curves in the road that I'd have to learn, I think I'd be able to hit the ground running and get a real jump start. But before I get too winded, the people, the staff, the challenges that are presented in Norwood, and the chance to be part of that community and give back in a way that you contribute to making a place where people want to live.
Okay. In terms of your career arc, if you will, where does Norwood fit on that? If you were to receive the position, where does we know that you started you worked at the O'Leary Library in Lowell at the university. And
Bernie's smiling because Bernie went to that library when he went to school on that campus.
I know that library well.
That's right.
And of course everything in Lowell I feel like I know pretty well. But what then you went to Situate. Talk to us about how this moves up and what happens after Norwood. Is there an after Norwood?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens after Norwood. Maybe after Norwood is retirement.
Yeah.
We'll see. I didn't, like I said, I've not been planning a move. You'll note from my resume that when I was a younger man, I bounced around a lot. But they were never lateral moves. They were always, to the next opportunity that was a little bit higher up the food chain, up the ladder. And because I wanted to be a leader, I wanted to be somebody that could help lead a team and build a team and shape and scope the way that we operate. So I got to a smaller library in a town of Winthrop, a town that I moved to right away, and I spent only a few years there, but that's where I learned how to be a library director. I made some mistakes, I had some successes, and I learned the value of the community and lived there for many years after I left that position. I consider that to be a learning ground where I would, kind of make my way and learn how to be successful. Once I felt like I had done that, I looked around for opportunities and found some and ended up in Belmont. And this has been where I've done the greatest work in my career in Belmont, but I don't think I've hit my prime yet. I think I have years to go. And my goal was probably to stay in Belmont for a longer period of time. But I was in love with a woman who lived on the South Shore all her life and wanted to get back to the South Shore, and had moved up to Winthrop with me, and has now been my wife for 7 years. And I'm proud to be sitting in our first home that we bought just a year ago, down in Weymouth, which I consider to be a town, again, very much like Billerica, where I grew up. And it's just about 14 miles from Norwood. It would be the shortest commute I've had in 10 years. So my arc, I had planned to stay longer term in Belmont, and you may very well decide that I should stay in Belmont. And if that's the case, I probably will. But I think that if I were to move now to Norwood, I would be digging in my heels. I would have no plans to jump to another thing. I don't want to be the director of a big city library or, some massive system where my impact can't be felt. I want to be in a place that produced me. And I want to give back to that style of community where everybody puts in and everybody takes out. And if things were to work well in Norwood, there might not be an after Norwood. Maybe that's the place where I can hit my prime, where I can do the best work of my career. Maybe I'll write that book someday. But I don't have a lot of plans for after Norwood. I'd want to spend 5 years learning about Norwood and learning how good I could be and growing, seeing what things we could do and what ways we could change the library for the better and make it an even stronger presence in the community than it is now. And I don't know, in 5 years, I'll see what happens the next 5 years, but I would love to stay. I would love to stay in my next role for 5 to 10 years, and maybe forever, if that was the right place for me.
Okay. Right. Could you just, you and I have talked a little bit about this, but between Winthrop and Belmont, there was a short stint of Arlington that, was out there. How did that, what sort of happened there that you?
Sure. So this is, if you had a question that was about, tell me about an error in judgment, or, if you did strengths and weaknesses or a mistake, this would be my mistake one. I took the wrong job. That was the biggest mistake of my career. So in the fall of 2014, I was at Winthrop, realizing that there was a lot of opportunity out in the greater Boston area, and that I had done what I wanted to do in my proving ground where I was learning to be a director. I was ready for the big leagues. So I looked to see what opportunities were available, and there were a lot. There was library director jobs in Belmont, in the city of Somerville, and in Arlington, and I applied for all three. I spent some time with Belmont and with Somerville, and got to finalist status in both of them. In Belmont, my competition dropped out of the race, and they determined that they, like you, wanted to bring forward 3 solid candidates to their hiring committee, and that they only now had one. So they were going to decide to shelve that process for the holiday season, come back to it in the spring. Somerville, I went all the way through, and they made me an offer to be their director of their 3 libraries in Somerville. And I was very proud and very thrilled, and I played it cool and said, I want to go home and think it over with my family. All I did was dance and celebrate. I was thrilled. The next morning, I got a call from Arlington, and they said, hey, we got your application. We'd love to meet with you. I go, I'm so honored. I'm so thrilled that you would call. I love Arlington. My mother grew up in the town of Arlington. My grandparents lived here all their lives. You're a little late. I've just finished a process with Somerville. They've made me an offer, and I plan on Monday to let them know that I'm going to take the offer. And they begged me to come. They said, can you please, we would meet with you tomorrow. And I go, I don't know if this makes sense. There's no way that your timeline would be such that would make sense. I wouldn't say no to Somerville just at the chance to be in Arlington and then maybe end up with nothing. But they begged me. They said, please come see us tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll skip ahead in the story. At 9 p.m. at the end of that day, I had 3 interviews with representatives from Arlington, one at 8 a.m., one at 3 p.m., and one at 8 p.m. And the next morning, they offered me the job to be the director of Arlington after 24 hours of meeting me. And I saw nothing wrong with this. I didn't see any red flags or anything concerning. I was a little blinded by my love of the community where I had spent a lot of time growing up, spending time with my grandparents. I'd only been married for about a year. I just had stars in my eyes. Excuse me. So I took the offer, and I told Somerville, thanks so much, but I can't pass up this opportunity to go work in a place that's given me so much. I spent a month or so in Winthrop, and then I went over to Arlington. On my second day there, I was told by a staff member that there was a group of trustees that had come that wanted to come up and see me. And I said, oh, great, the welcoming committee, has arrived. And 3 trustees came into my office and they said, don't get comfortable. They said, we didn't approve of this process. We cannot believe that you were hired on 24 hours notice. There was no public process. You weren't fully vetted. We can't believe that you were hired. Don't unpack your boxes. And I called the town manager, who was a guy my age, who had a lot in common with me and seemed to like me a lot. And I said, hey, what's the deal? And he said, oh, don't worry. You're good enough for Somerville. You're good enough for Arlington for sure. And he just wanted me because he liked my style or whatever, and felt like Somerville had done the process for him. They had vetted me fully. So fast forward about 8 weeks, I'd had great relationships with the staff. I was building community the way I would usually. I had gone through the process of writing the next year's budget, but I had 2 really terrible meetings with the Board of Trustees. I followed the script left for me by my predecessor of how the meetings would run, what style of presentation they preferred, and they just picked me apart every minute of each of the meetings. At the end of the second meeting, I said, I should go talk to the town administrator. And I go, isn't going to work. I go, they're very upset with the process that you went through, and they don't feel like they were included or heard. You're going to have to defend your decision. Had you told me what was going on, I wouldn't have taken the job. I would have gone to Somerville when we were all so in love with each other. And my mistake was that I didn't see those red flags. And I said, oh, it's Arlington. I'll be perfect. They love me. 1 day's notice. It's no problem. So I went and told the town administrator this story. And I go, listen, this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to be involved. You're going to have to come to a meeting, see this dynamic, and let's move past this tough landing together, or else I'm going to have to go. It's not going to be good for me. It's not going to be good for the library. And he went, oh, thank God. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, that'd be great. If you'd like to leave, that'd be great. Thank you. And my mouth hit the floor. I went home and ate ice cream for 3 weeks. Then I reached back out to Somerville and to Belmont, neither of whom had put together a completed process for their new library director. They both welcomed me back into their discussions. I went through the processes again with both of them, and I got the offer from Belmont and from Somerville again, and I chose Belmont after going through a process like this.
So you made a mistake. You made a mistake in that process, and you. What lesson did you learn from it?
Do it this way. When you see a job you want, think about it for 6 months. That's what you should do. If you have a great idea, write it down for 6 months. See how you feel in a week. See how you feel in a month. When I heard about this opportunity, the first thing I did was I reached out to my friend who worked there. I asked her what she thought. And then immediately, before the job was even posted, I came down to the library. I called the director. I let her know my intentions. I've known Charlotte for years. She was gracious and warm and accommodating. She said, yeah, come on down. We'll take a look around. And we spent 2 hours walking around the building, talking and a half an hour with her alone at the beginning and again at the end, and really got the flavor, got the feel of what it could be. I looked at your process. It looked thorough. You'd hired somebody like Bernie to come in and help guide. You had a search committee that would then go forward to the board like this. This looked like the right place. This looked like a fleshed out process. People like Jamie and Clayton are amazing, fantastic librarians. Clayton, who I've known for years, Jamie, who I don't know, but has a strong reputation. This looks to me like a process run by a group of people that know what they're doing. And I'd love to be a part of it. So that's what I learned, to do it this way, slow it down.
When you, let me give you an opportunity to tell us about something you're proud of accomplishing.
Sure. Something that I'm proud of.
Well, on the mistake, we'll go with something that you're positive.
Something that I'm proud of, I guess. Is there a specific area that you'd like me to focus on? Because I could go in 100 directions.
Just one.
Okay, I've really turned the library. I've really turned the library into an outward-facing organization in Belmont. It's something. It was an opportunity that was laid out for me when I got there. That the previous style of management had been that just to fight tooth and nail for the library, and it wasn't so much to dig in and become part of the team. You know, we were very much, when I arrived, we were very much the school, the town, and then the library. And I said to myself, what I need to do is make us one of the team. You know, I need to make us a outward-facing organization. So I did that. I began by forming relationships with everyone in town, not just the traditional, you know, the schools and the senior center, but like every department head in the town. I wanted to meet with every staff member at the library. I wanted to have a one-on-one with, to ask them about their hopes and their dreams for their jobs, all the things that they love, what things don't they love so much. What if we could do anything? What would you do? I assessed the situation and built a sense of community. Showed that I was a good listener. You know, I'd say I spent the first 6 months just kind of assessing the situation and really taking my time and doing it right. Of course, I updated a few things as we go, but after not long, I felt like I was one of the team. I had really strong relationships with everybody in town, from town government on down, the community groups and so forth. And I was able to start to attract new talent to the library by showing the successes, the year-over-year successes. Over the course of 5 or 6 years, we were able to take together, me and my team were able to take the library from a place that was great. We were in the 20 to 25 range of most successful libraries, measurement by circulation. We're now the 10th, and it's nuts. You know, it's 25,000 people in that town. And the other people on that top 10 list are places like Boston, Cambridge, Newton, Brookline, monsters that I shouldn't even be in the same area as them. And somehow our circulation numbers, our collection use are like 650,000 a year for having just a $2.3 million budget with just 25,000 staff members. And I really feel like it was because we made the library an outward-facing organization, part of the community, the place where you want to go, the living room of the community, and, you know, one of the heartbeats of town. And I think we just didn't have that before, and now we're a destination. And it was all about attitude, about listening, about community building, and not just saying, well, the library's the best. If you're cutting everybody else's budget, you can't cut ours. You know, but saying, how can I be part of the team, not just to make the library great, but to make the town great.
Okay.
So that's something I'm proud of. The way that the library is perceived now, our standing among the community, and I just have fun every day. I mean, it's just a great place to be.
Okay. All right. So I think actually you said, I think you kind of answered my question that I would have had regarding the building of relationships and how you would go about doing that while simultaneously answering our question about your success. How would you describe your management style? And give us an example of that reflects that management style.
Yeah. So I used to, I'm going to tell you what I would have said in the past. I would have said that I had an open door policy and I managed by walking around and all those things, that I was just very communicative. But that was a bunch of baloney. You know what the real answer is to my management style? And it goes hand in hand with communication style, is it's adaptive. That's the answer. I think that a one size fits model doesn't work all that great, and it definitely doesn't work for me. In my life, I have 65 employees. They are all over the map in terms of personalities, experience, comfortability. Some people love being there. Some people are there because, man, they need the paycheck. You know, people have different fears and desires, and you have to meet people where you are, or you're going nowhere. So I think that I'm the type of guy that, you know, I don't ask anyone to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. I consider myself to be a servant leader. So if there's something that needs to be done and I can be supportive of it, or I can be on the circulation desk, on the reference desk, helping to carry a heavy piece of furniture that's coming in. Anything that needs to be done, I'm happy to be part of it. I listen a lot. I'm empathetic of my staff. I certainly need to be persuasive at times, and aware when, I'm being worked over, etc. But I have to focus on having the right foresight and building a stewardship, an atmosphere of people, of communication, and we'll try to lead by example, I guess, a lot of the time. And my communication style goes hand in hand. You gotta meet people where they are. Some people are willing to come right in and share with you what they think they should do, or when you're making a mistake. Other people, you need to kind of suss it out. And I think that my base is that I understand people, and I put in the time to learn how people are successful, what environment they work best in, and what communication style works best to maximize their efforts. It's a little all over the place, but.
Well, what I really want you to do is focus in on, with your management style as a library director, give us an example of
Sure.
that would reflect that style.
Sure.
You mentioned that it's adaptive. So, this might be a tough thing to do off the top of your head like this, but give us an example of how you adapted your style from one situation to another situation, and it sort of shows that how you do that.
Sure. Well, let me tell you about my process of management too. So my process is a lot of communication, right? The door is open always, unless I have to be in a meeting, I have to be on a call. If I can't be bothered, then the door is closed, but that's not much of the time. So what I want to do is constant communication. So right now in Belmont, I have weekly department head meetings. That's what works for us. Some people think that's a little much. Maybe you should do it every other week. But what I do is I assess the situation when I arrive and say, what works well for this team? And our team in Belmont, what we do is we have weekly department head meetings. I ask the departments to run their own weekly check-ins, and then I have all staff meetings as needed. Once a month at least, and more often when necessary. In between these meetings, I try to do one-on-one check-ins with all the department heads as much as they need. And if they don't want to do it, then I try to do it every week or every other week with the department heads. And I have a constant communication with the Board of Trustees. In Belmont, it's a little bit different than Norwood. I think that in Norwood, I would report to the general manager, and the Board of Trustees acts as a advisory board. Is that correct? Where in Belmont, they are a supervisory board. So I don't report to the town at all. I only report to the Board of Trustees. So it's a balance there. Is that correct, that you manage to both in a way, but in Norwood you really you work for the general manager? Is that correct?
The trustees may want to address that themselves, but I guess I would say that it's a dual reporting responsibility. But
okay, great.
So it's not, yeah. So
Does that sounds accurate to you guys?
You report to both, right? Right.
Perfect.
John or Sarah?
I'll let Sarah go first.
Go ahead,
I
Sarah.
was going to say you would report to both. The Board of Trustees actually performs your director evaluation and makes the determination. Once we get a new director on board, there will be regular evaluations, and we will make recommendations to the town manager whether to continue with the contract or to advise to terminate the contract.
Okay, great.
I would just add to that the general manager and the other town apparatus in the financial area have the final say on the budget.
Right.
And the general manager has the final say on major personnel decisions.
Okay, great. So that's very familiar. That's very familiar to me, and that's very similar to what I do now. I very much report to both now, but if I had to lean in one direction of what I do now, I report more to my Board of Trustees. I treat them as my supervisors. They run my evaluations. They manage my contract negotiations. And same thing, like you guys said about the budget. The budget goes on to different financial boards in the town that I work in. So that's all pretty familiar, and honestly, the way I prefer it. to have a good relationship with the town and the general manager and department heads, but to kind of have this as my home team. Our only focus is making the library successful.
Marguerite? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Marguerite.
So how often do you meet with the board?
So I probably talk to the chair of the board several times a week. We have one formalized meeting a month, and we have different subcommittees of our Board of Trustees that I meet with pretty regular. So that might be one meeting a week. For example, I have a couple members of it that work on the what we call the financial subcommittee. So we work to build the budget together. I work with another one that is the liaison to the Friends of the Library. So that trustee comes to all the Friends meetings to report back and forth between the two bodies, and we prepare for those meetings together and debrief together. Another trustee still, who is a retired librarian, likes to be involved in personnel. So she specifically helps me when it's time to take a fresh look at a job description if someone's retired or moved on. And she loves to give her feedback and guidance on if there's any way we can update the job description to say 21st century librarianship. So just a few examples. So in many ways, I work with the trustees on a regular basis. There's one formalized meeting per month of the entire board, but I speak to the rest of them as often as needed. And it's a rare week where I have more than one day that I didn't speak to a trustee in some way. They do a lot of text messaging and a lot of drop-ins. They're regular library users. One in particular only likes to drop in, never wants me to know when they're coming, so they can jump in and see where I'm at and what I'm doing and make sure I'm not taking a nap or something. But I'm very comfortable having as involved of a relationship with the Board of Trustees as is needed or as is liked by the board.
Okay. John?
Peter, I'd like to tell you another meaning of adaptive that I was offered by a boss at the time. See if that relates to any of how you use the term.
Sure.
Said, you put all the employees you have in a 4x4 cell, four cell box.
Sure.
Most of them are in the lower two boxes, which are sort of the middle if you laid it out flat. They're doing an acceptable job. They're probably pretty close to the ceiling of what they can do. So you don't have to spend quite as much time with them, because time spent with them is not necessary and may not be availing. The other two boxes get most of your time. The people who need constant attention in order to do an acceptable job, and the people who have perhaps no ceiling at all, and the more time you spend with them, the greater they perform and the higher they rise. Does that bear any resemblance to the way you think of your staff, or am I completely down another path?
No, it sure does. It sure does. I've been guilty in the past, not lately, but I won't lie to you. In the past, I've been guilty of that, focusing all my attention on the best people, the people that do the best job. And that's a great way to burn out your shooting stars, to give all the jobs and ask for all the support from the people that you can rely on the most, and just allow everyone else to kind of coast. Maybe that works for a while, and you're successful in measurables over a fiscal year or 2 or 3. But in whatever, maybe those people even like that you're giving them so much attention and so much to do, opportunities to succeed. But over time, those folks start to resent that situation. And you've done a disservice to the people that need oversight and guidance and tutelage, because you've shown them for 2 or 3 fiscal years that it's just fine that they're doing what they're doing. And then if you show up all of a sudden and go, hey, it's time to really focus in on your work, they're reactionary, they're scared. In an age like this where budgets are so tight, they're constantly worried about their job, and then they respond out of fear or anxiety. So when you come in, you got a great opportunity to really get what information you can in the lead up, but start fresh with everybody. Give everybody a chance to excel, give everybody a chance to be their best self. And then you go from there, and you try to measure and parcel out your time appropriately. And you're not a good manager if you can't make, every employee can be good. You know, the process to make an employee good, or rather the process to, like, suppose one manager wants to just get rid of somebody. They're not doing a good job. Let's replace them with somebody else. You spend so much time on that that it could be wasted. The process to get rid of somebody, let's just say, is the same process to make them better. You know, you focus on what they're doing, you have constant dialogue and conversation, you measure success, you document the situation, and you check in on milestones. At the end of that process, you know, if you did a bad job, then you go, well, we've made the paper trail case and you're not going to work here anymore. But if you've done a good job, you've given them tools to be successful.
I think your answer is better than my question.
I don't know.
Stated in nuance, so
I try to listen more than talk when a man with a beard is in front of me. I won't be. I'll be honest, but I feel like I've made enough mistakes that I've started to learn the right way the last handful of years. Marguerite, did you have some question follow-up?
I'd like to get back to the board.
Mm.
How do you communicate with the board in between board meetings? And the reason I ask is I'm wondering why they feel the need to drop in to see you as often as they do. Charlotte communicates with us constantly whenever any change comes up and keeps us informed of all changes, all pending changes, all communications from the town. We feel as if we're very informed. Well, I'd like to know that. And I'd also like to know if you can tell me about a time when you and the board didn't understand. It seems to me that, is there a trust issue between you and the board that they feel the need to come to you all the time?
Sure. So let me unpack that a little bit. So when the dropping in, so I have one trustee that just comes into my office every time he comes to the library to pick up books. And he says, what's going on? What's up? He never comes in with an agenda or with there's something of concern. That's just his process, that whenever he comes to the library, he's a member of the Board of Trustees. He takes it very serious and he wants to come in and say, how's everything going? What are you working on? You know, do you need anything? You know, that's about it. There's never been a trust issue or a communication flow problem. That's just what that guy likes to do. And I've grown accustomed to it over the years. Otherwise though, constant communication with the Board of Trustees. We have one formalized meeting a month and I send them all the materials in advance of that, you know, as often as they like, as far ahead as they like as well. I build the agenda out with the trustee chair. And I build my director's report after I see what the agenda will look like. And when something of note comes up that needs to be communicated to the board, I communicate it to the board, you know, via email or via conversations. I'm very careful to stay within the parameters of the open meeting law and not meet with two of them and then tell two other ones what they said, you know, but there's ways that you can have successful relationships, you know, within those parameters. I don't think, no trust issues though. We don't always agree about every little thing, but we have very productive meetings, and we've seen a lot of gains at the library. All the ways that you can measure things at our library, they've all improved since I've been there and since this board has been in place. Circulation goes up, the offerings of programs, the amount we offer goes up, the attendance at those programs, the door count, the website traffic, and on and on. And I think it's because of that successful relationship, that back and forth. So
Can you tell me about one of the things that you didn't agree with? You said sometimes you don't agree. Tell me about one or two of the things that you didn't agree with.
Sure. I would have the same focus when it comes to budget, and exactly when I say focus, I mean sometimes we start from a different place. You know, sometimes they think we should have a much higher budget that is ever going to get approved, or in other cases, maybe they think that we should be focusing more on one area of our budget than another. And I do my best to manage up when needed. You know, they hire me to be the library expert, you know, to give them the guidance of what's actually needed. And then they are the supporters that help me to make sure that we get everything that we need. So we don't necessarily disagree. They don't say, oh, we want you to do this thing, Peter. And I go, well, I can't do that. It's wrong. You know, none of that happens. We come from a different backgrounds, you know, and different vantage points. My Board of Trustees in Belmont, they're I don't want to call them a corporate group, but but they all come from kind of high-powered corporate jobs in that community, and so they bring unique approaches. Some of them are executives in the banking industry, venture capitalists. There's one that was a top executive in the transportation department. So they're used to running large teams of people and giving their oversight and guidance. I would say that everyone on that board at one point or another was a manager of a large team. So it's just a dynamic. If you go out into, Western Massachusetts, places like North Adams or Florida, Massachusetts, those kind of small towns, the board of library trustees might just be a group of people that love the library and they don't have any particular agenda. Right next to the city, places like Lexington, Arlington, Belmont, there's just a different flavor of approach. So sometimes they want to run it like a business. They want to see deliverables on a monthly basis, quarterly returns, the value of circulation and how it attributes to the budget that has been set. So that's just the way that I've run with them. When I worked in the town before them, the chair of the Board of Trustees was a motorcycle driving, tattooed construction worker who totally loved the library and would do anything for the library. And we had a great relationship there too. And he had very different expectations than my current board. Your board reflects your community in many ways. And that's what's been so attractive to me about this process. I've read some of your meeting notes and I've watched some of your meetings, tried to take that opportunity, and you guys strike me as a great representation of the community that's been so attractive to me. So I don't want to go off on a tangent, Marguerite, but did that answer the question?
Yes.
There's not been a whole lot of disagreement. Sometimes it's a little bit about, oh, should we present this way or that way? We bring unique perspectives, and then we find.
I brought it up because you brought it up.
Sure. We find the middle ground. It's a balance. I think together, though, we make a great team. And if we were all exactly alike, we wouldn't make a great team. We bring a lot of different viewpoints together, and we create a great product, I'll say, in the service that we provide to the community.
Great. I used to have selectmen that would drop in like that too, so I could appreciate the some like that and some others.
That first couple months, I was worried. I asked, I go, am I doing something wrong? Because just tell me, And he goes, no, that's just, I just want to come in and say hi and see you. And okay.
Yeah. I had one that would drop in every morning after having breakfast at the diner and just back for 15, 20 minutes, usually about non-town related work. But
this is in Chelmsford.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's talk about, you mentioned the concept of the library being a living room, which is a popular description of libraries in many quarters now. You also talked about in Billerica the library being an essential department of the town for the people of Billerica. What is your vision of a library? Just describe that to us. So you come to Norwood. What's the library going to be? What's it going to do?
I'm going to start my stopwatch here because I don't want to talk for 20 minutes. What's my vision of what a library should be in a community like Norwood? Is that a fair assessment of that question? Okay. So I think libraries are very adaptive places too. And I think that when you go from place to place, the library is a different thing depending on its community. That wasn't always the case. Libraries were the quiet reading rooms that many people remember from their youth, where you went and got books, maybe you stayed and read them, and then you left. And somewhere around the period of 10 years between 1995 and 2005, there was a cataclysmic shift in the world of technology that we are all well aware of as we're using it right now. And libraries were at a crossroads, and we had to determine in what way we were going to adapt so that we could be relevant and of service to the communities that we served. In different parts of the world, this went in different directions. In the United Kingdom, for example, over the last 20 years, they have gotten rid of 10,000 librarian jobs. They determined in those early years, in the beginning of the 2000s, that libraries should become hubs for technology, that was the way to best serve their community. And librarians get different training over there now, and they provide a different function. In the United States of America, we went in a different direction, and we adapted in many ways. I'll speak about Massachusetts specifically. We didn't become hubs for technology. We became community centers. We became the place where everything happens. For years in that period of time, there was a lot of effort placed on letting the library patrons know what we had. We went blue in the face, screaming to people about how we have computers now, and we have movies and DVDs, and you can use our website. It has interesting things. It was just the most important thing was to beat it into people's consciousness that the library could bring them whatever it was that they needed. And that was the sole focus. I think that in many ways that still hangs around. We're always wanting to market ourselves as best as possible to show the programs and services. But that kind of period of explaining to people that we have computers now and we have different technology and programming, that's kind of changed again. Libraries now are a place that adapts. That's it. We see the need from the community, which can change rapidly, like this year it changed, but what we do now is we provide whatever is needed for the community. And if that's, an opportunity to better yourself through education, to learn a second language, to study for a job interview yourself, to prepare for an opportunity in your career, to help learn how to homeschool your children, or just a place to come to meet people, to have community relationships and great successes in programming, or to take home free Blu-rays because there's only one Blockbuster left in the country. Any of those things, whatever it is that you need from a library, that's what your library should provide for you. Specifically in towns like Weymouth, where I live, or Billerica, where I grew up, or Norwood, where there's some people that live in housing developments. There's some people with $1 million in the bank, and then everybody else is a working person, that puts into the community and that takes out of the community. And that's a place where I'd like to be. So that's what I would like to do, Bernie. That's my long-winded answer. I'd like to help to contribute to Norwood, to make it the type of place that people want to live. And I want the library to be front and center in the middle of all of it. Like I said, I would go out and form partnerships with people that are not traditional. I'd want to reach out to people that maybe libraries in the past shy away from, the business community, for example, or the religious community. If there's a group called the Norwood Republicans or the Norwood Democrats, I'd want to speak to them. If there's a group of all the religions that work together in efforts, like in Belmont, we call it the Belmont Religious Council, I'd want to be part of that group too. Even though I'm not really a religious person, I'd want to make sure that we were involved in every aspect of the community, partnerships everywhere, and that we could, help to make them better and let them partner with us to make our program slate more diverse and more of whatever's needed, in a given period of time. I don't want to go because it'll be less quality the more seconds I talk. But
let's talk about how do you. What's been your experience of reaching out to the diverse segments of the community? I mean, Norwood is becoming increasingly diverse in so many different ways. How do you ensure that the library is inclusive, welcoming, and accepting of everyone? And if you could, any examples are always great to tell us specifically what you have in mind when you are giving your thoughts.
Absolutely. I might just jump right there with examples of the things that I've done and the things that I will continue to do in my future. First and foremost, it's not to just sit around and decide that I know how to make the library more diversified and inclusive. I am one of the most privileged groups within a group as possible. I'm a white guy living in North America. If I think that I know anything about how to make the world more diverse, I'm mistaken. It's part of a team effort. And the way that I would build the foundations of this team and our education in this area is by building the team out with people that can support us. So what I've done in Belmont is, for one, I've diversified the staff. When I came to the library, that a lot of us looked a lot like each other. And what I said was, as I go forward in building out my team, let's look for people that bring unique perspectives, that bring unique backgrounds, that come from different parts of the world, that speak different languages. When I have two candidates that are equal in value, but one of them speaks 3 languages and one of them has only lived in this country for 10 years and is really a big part of, let's say, the Belmont Chinese American Association. That's a mark in their favor, because they're representing that part of the community that maybe we don't have represented on our staff, and we need represented on our staff. So that's one. I would work to make sure that we had the most, diverse staff of experiences and opportunities to show the public as possible. Next, very easy one is to diversify the collection, right? So to make sure that we have things for all the different people in our community, whether they're of African-American background, whether there's a strong Indian population. In Belmont, we've got a strong Chinese-American population and Armenian. So what do? I reach out to those groups and I say, let's be partners. I just, 2 weeks ago, I just finished a survey that we did once a year. We go out to bid on all the magazines and periodicals for our community. And I spend just shy of 10 grand, so I don't need 3 quotes. And I don't just go what's popular, what are other libraries. I don't just look in our network to see what's circulating, but I look at our community and see what the needs are. This year, we did a survey of Chinese language speakers in Belmont to say, what Chinese periodicals do you read and do you pay for? And do you have shipped here? Or do you pay high prices for online options? And you'd like to see the library buy? I didn't get the strongest turnout in the world, but I got like 60 or 70 people responded. And we bought a couple of the magazines that they wanted because they wanted it. Now they're going to love the library. That's just a thing to get them in the door, and then they'll see everything else. Other things, I go out of my way to partner with these groups, but not just partner and have open dialogue, but actually have their representation in the library, and not just on the staff, but the committees. So I'm completing, as we speak, I'm putting the final touches on our new 5-year long-range plan that will go from 2021 to 2026. And I pulled members of the community from different areas to sit on that committee. I wanted a representative of the Belmont Chinese American Association on the committee. I wanted them to push our survey that we got 300 responses on long-range programs and service opportunities out to that community. So those are my examples. I don't just sit around and go, what are those types of folks like from that part of the world or whatever. I go ask them and get them involved and show them that I want their buy-in, that this is their library. I just work here. That's the answer, though. It's more community building. It's more bringing people together. The library family is not just the staff, it's your board of trustees, but it's also your patron base and the people that love the library come to the library.
What about your friends? What about your friends group?
Yeah, anything particular you want to know about the friends group, or just how it goes?
How do you interact with the friends group?
They're one of my favorite groups in the whole world. All they ever want to talk about is how great the library is and how we can make it better. I meet with them monthly. I usually we have co-presidents at the moment. It's a big role, and you can't always get somebody that wants to commit the time to it. So in this case, I had two best friends that said, well, we'll do it together. So they run the friends together, and I meet with them usually lately via Zoom or on the phone, and we talk for about a half an hour about every other week. And then there's a monthly meeting of the Friends of the Library where they review their budget, they review what opportunities they have coming up, any successes that they just had, what's happening with the book sale. We have some program series that the Friends specifically fund and run in some ways. One of them is called the Friends Author Series, another the Music on Saturday series. Guess what that series entails? Music on Saturdays. But I go also to the meetings and I give them a fuller report. And it's kind of a mini version of what happened. What did I report to the Board of Trustees? Maybe what things are we working on? Are there any new staff? Where am I in the budget process? How's that looking? Any new ideas? That's my most favorite meeting of the month for the most part. Yeah, they're a great group. They're not as large of a group as you guys. I think we have 350 members, 375, and I think you have more like 500, which is great. And we work together to put together a budget for the library to utilize. And it's right around $50,000 a year. And they've got it parceled out into different areas, gifts for the staff, mostly for programming. They have one line that's called the Director's Initiative. Yeah, I mean, we have a great relationship.
Okay. Donna, you had a question, I think?
Yes, when he was saying he went to the Friends meeting, do you have a trustee that's a liaison with
I
with the
do.
Friends?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, she's the one retired librarian, and they try to swap around. They don't get I don't know. I don't want to say too comfortable, but like so that they stay sharp. They change these liaison roles from time to time. So I had one trustee that was the liaison for the last 2 or 3 years, and she's recently picked up something else instead. And now I have a different trustee that comes with to those meetings.
Talk to us about what your role is in the preparation of the budget and your experience in the development of the annual budget and the capital budget.
Yeah. What's my role in it and my experience with it? My role is that I do it all, top to bottom, soup to nuts. I write the budget from scratch. You use last year's budget as a basis for comparison, but mostly I want to pay attention to the MBLC's requirements. There's five different requirements to be accredited and certified by the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, and several of them have to do with budget, specifically a requirement of what your appropriation from the town should be. So I want to keep as much of a distance from that requirement to our actual budget as possible. In my years in Belmont, that's usually been between $50,000 and $100,000 above what that requirement is, so that when we get to times like this where it's much closer, we're okay. We were able to have a budget cut last year, and it did not put us in any danger because I kept a frequent distance over the years. I generally want to ask for a 2.5% increase annually. That's the guidance that's given from the state. That works out just fine for some communities some years, and in other communities, in other years, they say, that's not really going to work this year, and let us tell you why. And you work it out together. But I generally want to always increase my utilities a little bit to make sure that I don't run red in any of those areas. I want to maintain my building maintenance funds, but by and large, a lot of it's staffing, right? So I want to maintain staffing as much as possible. In Belmont, the way that I've been successful in adding positions is to do it half a position at a time. So maybe I create something from the ground up, but it's only 10 or 15 hours. And then I increase it the next year to 20. And all you got to do is convince them to give you that health benefits package. In Belmont, that's $17,000 or $18,000 for health benefits. Once they're willing to do that, then you might as well make it a 35-hour position. And I've had some success doing that, building out those extra positions. Capital budget wise, so I guess I'll back up. I didn't speak enough about it maybe, but I write the whole budget top to bottom, and I try to set my deadlines a couple of weeks before the real deadlines, so that if there's some internal discussion, if we'd like to review it as a board of trustees, if you guys have representation that you want to have come work with me, you can look at it and go, no, Peter, we want that to be higher here, and what can you do there? I keep at all times a 5-year history of all the money that I gave back and in what areas, so that I myself can judge what I need and what I don't. There's a school of thought out there that you got to spend every penny down to play it to the bone, because if you give any money back, they're going to cut the budget. That's ridiculous. I've never believed in that, and I don't think that makes any sense. You prudently and responsibly manage your budget to exactly the needs that you have, and if there's excess, you return that to the town, to the general fund, and show that you're a good partner. You don't just waste money buying extra stuff or giving people extra hours that they don't need. And I've always found in my management career that you're rewarded for that. They don't cut your budget. They want to see that prudent fiscal management. And that works well for me. Capital budget wise, I typically pick what things make the most sense to put in. Usually life and safety, health and safety comes first. If there's anything like a fire alarm or an air conditioner that needs to be replaced, things like that, usually come to the first for me. But I always have a 5-year projection at any given time of what I want, what the total cost is going to be over the course of 5 years. And do I shuffle the deck every year? Sure. Sometimes things change, but I don't just go, well, I think this for this year and that for next year. I usually want to have a list of every single thing that we're going to need, even if it's going to take a decade to get all of it. And I adjust those prices, for the proper inflation. If construction goes up 4% a year, I'm going to adjust those the third year out. I'm going to adjust those numbers 12% when I do this exercise next year. And any support and guidance that I can get from the facilities department, the Department of Public Works, those kind of guys and gals. I'm not sure how the process works in Norwood, but as much support and guidance as I can get from those folks that know more about that, I'm always happy to have it. But I try to make it a 5-year lookout at minimum.
Do trustees have any other questions regarding the finances? Okay. Experience with advocating. Can you describe an experience where you've had to advocate on behalf of the library budget?
Sure. I mean, if I was going to keep going, that's where I'd go anyway. After I build out the budget, after the trustee leadership is comfortable with it, if that's the model, then it goes on to the different finance committees. In Belmont, I have to report to 4. There's usually 4 reviews of every budget all the way through. And many years they want a second version of the budget, and then there's 4 reviews of that. So I pass it into the town, and my first review is in our town, we have a town manager with her team, and her team is her assistant, the town treasurer, the town accountant, and sometimes the HR director will sit in and review it. And I'll usually bring with me the chair of the Board of Trustees who likes to be involved. What I do too is if you called up Belmont and asked them, and I don't care, I'm in a job interview, I'm gonna toot my horn and tell you a success. They usually tell me that I'm one of the ones that they like dealing with the best, because I don't play any games. I believe in the no surprise policy, the NSP. I bring forward all the documents that they would like prepared, and I almost always bring forward another 1-page double-sided document that has on one page all the greatest successes of the library in the last 12 months, and on the other side, every single place that the budget is increasing and exactly by how much it's increasing and what that line is used for. So there's no having to like fish through the budget and make sure that he's not playing games or hiding increases. They see a big percent at the bottom, but they don't know where it is. I don't do any of that stuff. I put it out right front and center, and they love it. They review it with me very quickly, and those conversations that a lot of my colleagues fear in town, those don't go that way for me. I meet with that first group, and then it goes on to several other groups. Usually the Board of Selectmen, that's a televised thing. After that, the warrant committee, that's basically just a finance group that manages the appropriations of the entire town. We meet with the capital budget committee as well to look at the 5-year capital budget lookout that I present. And in some cases, there's other groups that come and go that sometimes they're in place for a certain reason, like the Major Capital Projects Working Group that's going to do all the different projects that need to be done in the town in the next 5 years. So they're paying attention to the budgets very specifically, things like that. At the end, it usually goes forward to town meeting is what we have, a 300-member representative meeting in town. And they don't typically give us the opportunity to present that there, but we're available to answer any questions. What usually happens is the town manager presents the entire budget in buckets, and the head of the warrant committee as well. And then they share with the town all the different groups that all voted approval. And then, there'll be a couple people that go, what about that library boiler? It seems like it's on its last leg. Are we going to need that? And then maybe I get a chance to get up and talk. But I usually give 4 or 5 presentations though. But I don't do, traditionally, I haven't done a lot of slides and a big presentation where you lose people. I just give them a 1-page document, double-sided with highlights and exactly what the increases are. And then I'm available for their questions. And I don't want to say I don't sweat it anymore, but it's not the struggle that it was when I started doing it years ago.
Okay. Other question? Anybody have a question on this area? We're running a little tight on time here, so I just have a couple more that I want to get to. Your experience with technology. How comfortable are you with technology, and particularly social, sort of all aspects of it, this software that you would use to manage, the software that you would use to,
Sure.
Operate the library, and then social media.
Sure. So I'm very comfortable with technology. This is a place where I feel like I have a leg up in some ways, because I'm already part of your Minuteman Library Network, and again, sit on the board, the executive board that helps to make the decisions of how all the funding that libraries send to our Minuteman network is utilized. And a lot of the times that's on different various technologies that we can share together. So I, like Charlotte before me, because Charlotte for many years was part of that board. you're working for the betterment of the entire network, but you certainly don't make any decisions that aren't going to directly benefit your library. So it's always great to have your library director be able to sit on that board. My comfortability with technology, though, is that I've been in the network for many years. I'm comfortable with the Sierra ILS system that all the staff members use. When it's time to replace that system, I'll ask to be on the board that will choose the new vendor. Libraries tend to do that, every 5 years or so, see what other products are out there. We're using a product that works okay, but we've had it for a long time. And I think that the next time it comes up, I'm going to push the network in a direction to look for a new, more intuitive, cloud-based, software that we can utilize in better ways, that we can get better, stronger statistics about our communities out of it, and cater to our unique populations. Again, so I'll try to sit on that board when that comes up. I created a new website for our library. I didn't love the website when I got there, and some of the staff were really hungry for a new website. So we defended the idea, built a proposal, we're able to locate some funding, and then I went out and talked to, 4 or 5 different groups that build library websites, picked the best one, and we created a brand new website from scratch. That's maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, and we've seen the highest traffic that we've ever had on that website. Directly out of that is the way that we start to advertise our social media. Right on the top of our website, we have our social media links. Social media is incredibly important and an incredibly important tool to our successes in Belmont. When used strategically, it's the key to promoting the library as this community treasure that it is. In the past, I helped to manage Facebook pages and Twitter pages. Other groups that we don't utilize anymore that are not popular, things like MySpace and Pinterest we used a lot when I was a librarian. But now what I do is I try to make sure that I've got staff that are focused on what's the newest thing, what's the most important thing, what accounts should we have, and then I make sure that I've got a well-rounded knowledge of them all, so that I can utilize them myself, have my own accounts, and make patron relationships with them. But whenever we have these, I think that we use the ones that we use are Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I think we reach a really wide range of audiences. We've got about 1,300 Twitter followers, about 1,400 likes on Facebook, and we utilize those accounts as much as possible. And we try to utilize the other town social media accounts as well, specifically the newspapers, the parents' Facebook groups get a lot of attention, and we ask other partners in town to push out our things on their social media pages. And but by and large, I think the newsletter, the digital newsletter that I send out is one of the best tools that we have. It goes out to 14,000 residents in Belmont. There's only about 25,000 people that live there, and that includes all the children. And I've got 14,000 different email addresses of citizens of our town that read our newsletter. And I think that's one of the best tools that we have. And we adapted that from a former era where that was just a one-page sheet that we left at the library on the desk, and maybe we'd send it to the senior center. But now, like I said, we send it out to 14,000 people. I asked the Council on Aging and the schools to send it out. And what they have, the town has a virtual backpack for parents. We send it out to that. That's another 5,000 people. So maybe people are getting it twice, but yeah, the social media and the technology is the greatest marketing tool that we could ever ask for. And this year in particular, like I said, we've been knocking ourselves dead for years trying to explain to people how great, virtual use of the library could be, downloadable, streamable circulation methods, things like Hoopla and Canopy and Overdrive, ways that you can get ebooks for free right in the palm of your hand. And we've done fine, but a global pandemic helped a little bit more. Unfortunately, it was a positive side effect for libraries. And I think that when this is all over with, when the world resumes in its new normal, libraries are going to be very well seated in that new normal, because these folks aren't going to go, well, I'm going to stop using all that really interesting and, totally supportive technology right in the palm of my hand, totally convenient access to materials and programming as well. We'll continue to do this online programming. There will be a home for it in the future of library services, well after we welcome patrons back in for programs in person. I don't want to go too far off.
No, that's right. Because as I say, we're running out of time here, but I do want to talk a little bit. You talked about your reliance upon the DPW and the facilities people. So it's, I think we can address the fact that you understand the management and maintenance of a facility. And we know that Belmont is looking at a new library building, albeit without any state funding, because they've turned back the grant a couple times. So, but you've had an opportunity to go through the Norwood Library, and you know that there's some space issues there that are trying to be addressed within the four walls of the library. What's your experience in sort of adapting the physical utilization of the library to address the specific space needs that come over time?
I think it's one of my greatest skills. I'll be honest. I look like a young Italian guy. I'm actually an old, stingy Italian guy who wants to maximize every single nickel, any possible way that we can. And I've done a great job of, fighting to get the right funding, and really targeting an approach of maximizing spaces wherever possible. My predecessor wanted to build a new library as I have, and we had a different style, right? And it's not that one was right and one was wrong, but her style was to let the library fall into disarray, to not update it at all, and to show the need and to show how outdated this library is, to show strong numbers and show that that's, we clearly need a better, it's Belmont, we need to be represented the way that our neighbors are with a big building. And let's let everything fall apart. Let's not paint anything. No new carpet, no new anything like that. And I understand that method. In Belmont, it just didn't work. So when I got there, they'd spent 19 years trying to build a new library, and my predecessor retired. So I decided to do everything completely opposite. Again, not because I thought she was wrong or did anything wrong, just didn't work. So my process was, well, I want this place, I want the tiles breaking under people's feet because of how many people are in this building. I want to make this place comfortable, attractive, and get the numbers up, increase our circulation, get more people in the library, get more people talking about the library, target certain spaces and put in minimal improvements as needed, as can be approved. But we did a lot in the way of carpet, furniture, and redoing of spaces. And now, we spent a few $100,000 over the years. I won't lie, but it worked. That's what I wanted. I wanted people to come in and see all the things that we could do in a new space by doing a little bit in our library. So we put in almost all new furniture in the whole building, new children's desks, new reference desks, new technology, lots more data ports and outlets, all new study corrals. I got a $150,000 Green Communities grant, and I redid all the lighting in the library to LED, energy efficient lighting, drop ceilings in two major places. I replaced a $80,000 boiler that was 20 years after its life expectancy, and on and on. Redid the reference room completely, redid a teen space completely, and saw increased traffic there. And it's not like you don't change the world, it's just some furniture here, some paint, carpet there. And it changes the way people feel about the library. So now when my predecessor wasn't able to take us beyond, just asking for a library, I saw the first feasibility study done in our library in a decade. And then I was able to go through a process of getting $300,000 from the community, some of which we put up ourselves, to do a schematic and design on a new building. And that was the first schematic and design that had been done in Belmont in over 60 years. So I know that the targeted approach to maximizing space is just kind of looking at collections, seeing what works and what doesn't, getting buy-in from the community and from the staff and the Board of Trustees, and then taking that buy-in, putting it all into a melting pot and coming out with an idea. Let's look at this space. I think it could be a little better. I think we could maximize usability. Are there any books in the library that aren't being well used? How come? Is there a way that we can make those collections work more for us? If there is, let's do it. If not, let's get rid of them and let's turn that space into something more comfortable. I spent an hour with Tony Mizuko, and I won't lie, he talked about a cafe a lot. He seems to love the library. He seems to see a lot of opportunity in that building. What a beautiful old stone building that's not very different from my 150-year-old house that I'm sitting in. I love that kind of old style that's just carried through. But it's been completely renovated about 20 years ago. And now 20 years later, there's such opportunity. Walking around, I saw a lot. Nothing's wrong, but I think that there's a lot of ways that we could maximize that space better. And at the end of it, everybody has more space, even though we stay in those walls. The staff have more space. It's more comfortable for patrons. And any sort of materials that are there, they're there for a reason because they're sought after and they're used.
Okay.
Nothing wasted.
Okay, good. Last question. Fast. Your greatest weakness,
My greatest weakness,
and what have you done to address it?
I overthink it too much. That's my greatest weakness. I spend 65 hours on the job when I probably could have spent 55 hours because I want to make sure that I'm making the right decision. I overthink it sometimes to death, and then I go to somebody like you, Bernie, or like John, who's the chair of the board, or like Lydia Sampson, who will be the assistant director, and I'll go, this is what I'm thinking, and I fleshed it all out, and these are the challenges I see forward, and I'm not sure. I think we should do this, but I'm not sure. And then they go, that's exactly what we should do. What are you talking about? Dude, go do it, you know? I had a lot to learn in my career, and I feel like I've learned a lot of it that I need to start the prime of my career, but I have to remind myself that a lot. I won't lie, you know, I learned a lot from that Arlington situation. I thought I had the world, the bull by the horns, you know, and I really took a step back, and that really hit my confidence a little bit. But maybe it's good, you know, maybe I shook off any kind of ego that I had, because if you talk to people now in the community I work in, they will not say that he has an ego. He thinks very highly of himself. No, you know, I think it's a team approach, and sometimes I'm just a player on that team. Sometimes I'm the one steering that team and steering that ship. And I need to remind myself, when I stop and look at a job well done, I've done a great job. We took the place from 25th-ish in the Commonwealth to 10th. You know, and they didn't jack up our budget. I didn't get an extra $1 million. If anything, I've streamlined the way we use money and give back what's not needed. It was just the little things, just the tweaks, and I need to have more confidence myself, because I do a good job.
Okay. Trustee questions that were not addressed that you might have. John.
Going back to space, the cafe idea was the #1 idea surfaced by the people we surveyed for the last long-range plan. The other use of space that we right now would have trouble finding is the living room idea, the expanded meeting space idea.
Sure.
Third piece is, we don't just have an old library, we have a historic building library. And that means that it's like when your car stops being old, it's a classic instead.
Right.
The conversation about whether to keep it or not to keep it changes dramatically. We have a fairly conservative and older political class across the board, and a very strong and vocal historic preservation group. So these would all be constraints on what is an acceptable solution to problems that involve insufficiency of space for certain new or expanded purposes. And I'm kind of interested in your take on the problem as I've spec'd it out.
Yeah, I don't think of it as a problem. I guess I think your library is totally beautiful, and it's, you know, 2 blocks from the downtown area and 3 blocks from the government. I think it's the right building, and it's in the right place. And I think that if you hired a new director and they came in and said, you need a new library, or we need a big addition, they're nuts. I think that what they should do first is spend 2 years, you know, seeing what targeted updates you can make in the library, and let's see what happens. Let's maximize those spaces. I was being polite, but I won't lie to you, John. When I walked around in the library, I saw a lot of low-hanging fruit. I saw a lot of spaces that I think are being successful, but that could be more successful. I saw a lot of great collections that I might have in a different spot.
Okay.
That I wouldn't have front and center. I wouldn't presume to come in and say, let's change everything. I'd want to learn all about all the decisions of the past and get some key buy-in from the people that run the library, you know, the staff, the trustees, and the key users. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity right in that space to do a lot. When I look at the numbers, I'm like I said, I wrote one of them down. Our circulation, I won't count FY20 because it was a bit of a different year for all of us, right? Where we had to close our buildings. But in FY19, I did 648,000 in circulation in a town that's got 5,000 less people than you guys, and you did 260,000, which is strong. But why is my circulation so much stronger? I'll tell you what, it's not because there was a better director, because Charlotte Kennelly's fantastic, and it's not because there's a better staff, because our staffs are equal in terms of success and ability. So I wonder if there's a lot of opportunity in there to tweak things a little, realign where some things are, and all of a sudden we'd see a big net return, and then we'd be able to see, is this space, can we maximize this space to be the best library it's ever been in this town? Or do we need to talk about a renovation, a major renovation, an update to the building in the future, an addition or things like that? But I'd want first the ability to see how much we could make that space work for us. And then, of course, I would take oversight and guidance from this board, from town government. And if the decision was that this town wanted something different in the way of a library, I'd be full force ready to do that. And with 5 years right beforehand experience working towards a new library in our community in Belmont.
Good job.
One very short question.
Sure thing.
You majored in philosophy.
I did.
Are there any schools of philosophy that you're particularly drawn to?
Yeah, I read the ancients a lot. I read Socrates and Plato a lot. But I also believe in moral relativism. I try to shy away from things like Immanuel Kant's duty-based theory. I read more of guys like James Rachel's. I believe that we're all in it together. And we don't have an obligation to anybody but each other. Immanuel Kant would say that if your family was starving, you shouldn't steal some bread for them because it's against the rules to steal. He wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. My philosophies are in learning about people, learning what makes a community, and becoming a part of that. I'd like in 5 years for people to go, you know what, Norwood became a little bit more of a fun place to be right around the time that Peter got to the library.
First part of your answer was the answer I was looking for, because I'm a former philosophy minor.
Oh no.
Names like Kant and Plato, ring bells in my head.
Sure.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anybody else? All right. I think we're out of time, Peter. So
Okay.
we will. The process is that the trustees have completed their interviews. They're going to be mulling this over the next several days, and if they have any questions, I'll let you know, and be making a decision next week.
It was an honor to be part of your process, folks. An honor to have your consideration, and I'm just grateful to be someone that you even wanted to look at. It would be an honor to come and work with you in Norwood as well. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Take care.
I treat you as well as Arlington did.
Thank you very much, John. All right, everybody, have a great week. Thank you again.
Thank
Thanks.
you. That concludes our interviews. And I think our plan is to get together next Monday morning at 9:30, where you will have your discussion and your decision, potentially. I will send out the Zoom information to each of you, as well as just some general thoughts on the process you should use. And I'm available for any of your phone calls or emails if you want to touch base and discuss any of the candidates and have any further questions. So, Sarah, did you have something?
I was just you already addressed what I was going to say.
Okay. All right. So,
One thing, Bernie?
Yep.
Next Monday's session is not going to be televised, is it?
I believe it is. Yes. Yep.
I think, Marguerite, I think you may not have been on yet when Sarah made the very good point that we conduct the meeting as positive. Everything we say is positive about the.
Always,
The-
always.
The one that we decide we like the best is more positive.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, well, without saying.
So to put it into the framework of when we do the director evaluation.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. Thank you, Sarah.
And again, if the members have any questions or just want to discuss any of the candidates with me, sort of bounce ideas off of, just give me a call or drop me an email, and we'll arrange a time to talk.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. I think your work here is done, John. So I'll let you take us out.
Okay, Bertie, thanks to you for steering us through a very effective interview process. We know what we need to do next, and thanks everybody who tuned in and watched now or in real time or later. And thanks to all the members of the board for good questions to the folks, and we'll see where we are next Monday morning. Have a good week and weekend.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
Thanks.